Okay, if your heart rate keeps climbing higher and higher within the run, whether that's an interval session or a long run session, even when you're hitting pace targets, don't panic. It doesn't necessarily mean you're unfit, but it does mean you're probably doing something wrong. And in this video, I'm going to show you how to fix it. I'm Grantham, a coach and a professional ultra runner who went from running a marathon in 4 hours and 25 minutes to running a marathon in 2 hours and 21 minutes. And in a very short time, 11 months, I went from running a marathon in 3 hours and 25 minutes to running a marathon in 2 hours and 37 minutes. And the question that I got, and I will answer in today's video, is exactly the type of improvement that I used, along with many others, in order to push myself forward so much in a short time, because I just looked under the bonnet of every single little thing that I could improve, along with working with the right people. If you're looking to take a massive chunk off your marathon time and you're working towards, let's say, Berlin or Chicago Marathon, and you want help with doing that, please get in contact by booking call in the link in the description. Paul messaged me just after falling short at Manchester Marathon. He was aiming for sub 4 and didn't make it. Hi Lee, I'm loving your run training content on YouTube. I've been trying out your 6-day training method since I fell short of my sub 4 goal at Manchester Marathon in April. All was going well until I bonked at mile 19. I intend to fail forward, brilliant, and aim for a 3 hour 45 marathon goal in October. First, I have a half marathon in my calendar. During my interval and long run sessions, I can consistently hit the goal pace targets. However, my heart rate increases throughout the session from one interval to the next. I've attached 2 charts from this week. Does this indicate that I'm pushing too hard for my current ability? Would you recommend reducing my pace until I can maintain a steady heart rate across the intervals, or persevering with the plan to see if my heart rate recovery improves with increased fitness? Thanks, Paul. Now, I absolutely love it. I love it because the effort is clearly there. We can see that from the interval session and the long run. We can see that from going for it at Manchester Marathon and now failing forward. It's brilliant, and it's a problem that 99.9% of us have faced at some point or are still facing right now. And the great thing about this problem is there's a simple fix or fixes that I'm going to discuss with you now. And once we fix them, it's going to lead to higher quality training sessions, higher quality running across the months and across your training schedule, and faster times. So what do we know about Paul so far? We know that he's gone for it at Manchester Marathon and fell short of his goal 4 hours, but he wants to fail forward. We also know that he bonked, in his words, so probably a mixture of the heat on the day, nutrition. We've got to look under the bonnet there and really figure out what it was and correct it. But when we look at his sessions, I'm willing to guess that the heart rate graph within the marathon has something similar in it, that upward trend. Now, you're gonna get some heart rate drift, especially if you're in a hot country, and especially if you're on a hot day like Manchester Marathon. You cannot replenish water 1 for 1 with the electrolytes, etc. And so there's going to be some natural heart rate drift. So if you're starting a marathon at 150 beats, for example, you might finish at 160 to 170. Even if you're running the same pace, perceived effort is exactly the same, it will drift upwards. That's not what we're seeing here for these sessions. So let's take a look at the 2 sessions. So first of all, 6 times a kilometer with 60 seconds rest in between, faster than a half marathon pace, so 10K pace he's got there in brackets. And what we can see is rep 1, rep 2, more or less under control. The heart rate is going up to the effort level of around about 160 to 165 beats. But already from rep 1 to rep 2, there's that upward trend. And more important than that, when we look at the heart rate recovery between rep 1 and rep 2, there's quite a big difference. That upward trend is steeper. What does that mean? What that actually leads to is rep 4 and rep 5, we can see that the heart rate cannot recover that much. And so when he's attacking the next rep, it's not manageable for him. And therefore, that leads to more effort for exactly the same pace. It's not what we want. And as he said in his email, he can consistently hit the goal pace, but the effort is trending upwards, which means that if we try to do exactly the same and we set off at, let's say, 5 minutes per kilometer, 8 minutes per mile for the marathon, we can handle the first 10K, no problem. But the last 10K is a completely different story. We need to get that under control. What I like about that graph is he's clearly respecting the warm-up. So he's walking to begin with. We can see that he's below 100 beats, lightly jogging, then some dynamic stretching, most likely. He's following the method. And then what he's built the warm up to be is 2 times 50% of the reps. So 2 times half a kilometer or 2 times 2 minutes at the pace that he wants to be at during those initial reps, that first and second rep. That pace and effort, super important that we focus on effort at the end of the warm up so that it's not a shock to the system once he gets into those first 1 or 2 reps. And as we can see there, that's been the case more or less for the first rep. If we look at the long run, we've seen exactly the same thing again. So this run is 80 minutes, 20 minutes easy at the start, 20 minutes easy at the end, so both in zone 2, and then 4 times 10 minutes with 2 minutes jog recovery or 60 seconds rest recovery in between. And what we can see there again is that trend. So he's sticking to the pace, but the trend in the effort is trending upwards to the point that it looks like on that 3rd rep, he's had to take extra recovery in order to execute that 4th rep. So it's exactly the same, the 6 times a kilometer session and the 4 times 10 minutes within a long run, exactly the same. On both graphs, it's not just the effort is going up, the heart rate is not recovering, as he's mentioned in his email. So let's remember the question. Should I slow down, he asked, or should I persevere and let the fitness, let the pace come to him and also the heart rate recovery? Now, there are 4 ways you can deal with this, 4 ways that you can fix it. And when you implement 2 of them, it will fix it. But when you implement 4 of them, what it's going to lead to is not just fixing the problem, it's making you a better trainer, getting you more improvement, more super compensation from all of these key sessions. Imagine how that compounds over the total training session and over the years. Remember that what we're trying to do is we've got that volume working for us. We've got that aerobic base in most cases. Just got to respect the recovery runs, easy runs, zone 1, zone 2, building that aerobic base. These key sessions are where you're moving forward the most. So you've got to respect them, get the most out of them, which means solid warm up, solid cool down, keep that consistency over the weeks and months. And the better we can execute these sessions, the more you're going to move forward. It is as simple as that. So number 1, we saw it pretty clearly there with the interval session. It's warmed up, walked, light jog, dynamic stretching, then accelerating, and then doing 2 times 50% of those first reps to get his body primed so it's not a shock to the system to do those first 1 or 2 reps. And that has worked for him for the first rep. If we look at it again, essentially for those first couple of efforts at the end of the warm-up, he's getting up to about 153 to 155 beats. He's already above that at the end of the first rep. And he's definitely above that towards 160 at the end of the second rep. If we look at reps 3, 4, 5, and 6, he's well above it, to the point where he's at something like 175 to 180 beats at the end of rep 6. So what he's doing is right. We just need to improve it. And what that looks like is if that's an elongated warm-up, you've got to do more time in order to be able to get your heart rate up to that level. That's priming the body. So I would want to get him up to 160 to 165 beats. And what we're aiming at is 6 times a kilometer as consistent as possible when it comes to the mountains, the efforts, and also the heart rate recovery. That's what we're aiming at. So that perfect session could be 6 times a kilometer at 165 beats and coming back to 135, 130 beats. We can also do exactly the same with the long run. And so it's not 20 minutes easy, zone 2, 20 minutes easy, zone 2 at the end, and then all of a sudden the efforts. If we do that, again, it's going to be a shock to the system to do that first 10-minute rep. So what that will look like for me is I'm warming up, walking, light jogging, dynamic stretching, then accelerating, then I'm starting that 20 minutes in zone 2. And between 14 minutes and 20 minutes, I'm ramping up the effort and getting the heart ready to handle that marathon pace, half marathon pace, whatever it is you're targeting, effort-wise, and pace for those reps. You're priming the body so it's not a shock to the system to go into those reps. What that will lead to is more consistency over the bumps, but more consistency with the heart rate recovery as well, which makes the session much more manageable for you. What you can also do to improve both of these sessions is give more respect to the cool down. So a lot of us will do 6 times a kilometer, and then that was tiring, Don't want to do that again. And so 60 seconds rep, and then walking around a bit, drinking, speaking to your friends or whatever. 5 minutes pass, and then you get into the cool down. And usually for a lot of people, that looks like light jogging for 1 to 2 kilometers, 1 to 2 miles. And then they're getting in the car and that's done. And they might do a little bit of stretching. No, what we want to do is after that 6 rep, we give 60 seconds only, and then we're starting again. And what the heart thinks is you're doing another rep. And so your heart rate will jump up again after you give it that 60 seconds. So let's say you get up to 165 beats in that last rep. 60 seconds brings us back down to 130, 135 beats, for example. And then we're starting, but we're not starting at the pace and effort that we were hitting those reps for. We're not doing another rep, but we're not going super slow. So we're not forcing the heart rate into zone 2. And what that's going to do for you is clear the lactate faster, but also teach the body to clear lactate more efficiently, which is going to improve the session and your consistency over these key sessions. It is gold once you feel that working. So let me try to explain that example. Let's use the treadmill so we'll understand the paces and the effort that we're putting in. Let's say the session is 6 times a kilometer with 60 seconds rest in between. And the pace and effort, again, 165 beats, within those reps of a kilometer, we're doing those at 16 kilometers an hour or 10 miles an hour. What that would look like at the end of the last rep, 60 seconds, hop off the treadmill, and instead of putting it at your usual sort of 8 miles an hour, 12, 13 kilometers an hour, and gradually bringing it down, just put that back up at 14 and a half, 15 kilometers. So not right at the effort level, but slower, so that you can feel that it's slower. Again, the heart will think we're doing another rep. So it'll jump up, and then it'll very quickly realize over 2 to 4 minutes that in fact you're not doing the same activity, and then you'll gradually see your heart rate drift back down into zone 2. It's incredibly important. Number 2. Okay, the idea is that we want to run faster than we ever have in the next marathon. And that's 3-4 months away. We're building towards that. And everything that we're doing is feeding into that. So let's say we've run 3:20 for the marathon and we want to run a sub 3-hour marathon for the first time. So we're locked in on that 4:15 per kilometer or 6:52 per mile. What that then often leads to is we want to do a session like 6 times a kilometer and know that we can run each one of those kilometers faster, or at least at the pace that we want to run that marathon 3 or 4 months from now. So the session is anchored around pace. But if you think about it, we're not at that pace yet. We're at 3:20, and probably you've taken some fitness away once you've backed off from that marathon and you're getting back into the swing of things. If you're in the headspace that, well, I want to do 6 times a kilometer with 60 seconds rest, and it's only 6 times a kilometer, 6 kilometers worth of volume, and I want to be able to run those in marathon pace to prove to myself that I can do marathon pace for 6 kilometers, and then in 4 months I can do the entire distance. It's not how it works. And what will actually happen is exactly what we've seen in those heart rate graphs. And often what happens along with that is you're putting yourself into a risk-reward zone that doesn't make any sense. Again, what we're looking for here is consistency over the mountains and over the valleys, the heart rate recovery as well. So if that means starting slower, that's exactly what you do. You're looking to manage and control the interval session. At this point, it's nothing to do with pace and all to do with effort. So if you're just managing the interval session, whether that's 20 times 1 minute, 6 times a kilometer, or 4 times 10 minutes, that's exactly what you're doing. Let's say in that example again, somebody at 3 hours 20 for the marathon who's trying to get to 3 hours. For that 3-hour 20 marathon, which has all gone to plan, it's well paced, he was at 160 beats average. What we then want to do is for that same 160 beats, we want to be able to go 20 minutes faster or more. So we want to become more efficient at running over the ground at 160 beats per minute. And to do that is actually very simple as long as you stay patient and disciplined. Keep in mind at all times, control, efficiency. Is this manageable? Can I do another rep if pushed? If you can, you're more or less in the right place. Number 3. And this is gold, and I always use it. It's really important, and it will help keep you in the right zone for the entire session, the right effort level, won't let you recover much, but you will get used to it very, very quickly. And that's the 60 seconds rest, recovery in between. Now, if you're doing a 10-minute interval, that might feel like nothing at all. If you're doing a kilometer interval, again, initially it feels like it goes by. It feels like the kilometer lasts forever and that minute rest is just gone. What we're doing is training the heart to recover faster and more efficiently from high during the effort to low so that we can go again. We can manage either a faster pace or more volume. And feeding into point 2 about pacing, if you've only got 60 seconds rest in between, that dictates the pace that you can hold from start to finish. We want consistent mountains and heart rate recoveries. So if you're going out too fast and you can't recover, the heart rate's not coming down to what it should be, you can't manage that session. So it's out of your control, which means it can lead you on to a point where you're striving for the pace because you want to hit this magic number you've got in your head about the pace you want to hit 3-4 months from now. Let it come to you. When I'm training for a marathon, there is a key session that I do that I know if I can do this, especially in a hot climate like Spain where I usually am, or Chiang Mai, I know that I can run a PB in a marathon. And that is 12 times a kilometer with 60 seconds rest in between. If I get midway through that, the heart rate's not coming down, I know that I'm not in the shape that I need to be in order to execute the marathon. So it's not just about the pace that you're running at. It's about that efficiency, that control of the heart rate to bring it down from high to low. Number 4, I made a video a while ago about, okay, if you were just to run at 130 beats, for me that's the top of zone 1, and you were to stay disciplined at 130 beats, what would that look like for the typical runner? What it looked like for me is initially it was uncomfortably slow to the point where I was asking my coach, is there any point in this? Is it actually moving me forward? Because it's almost unrelated to what I want to do in the marathon and in ultra running. What I then learned over the weeks and months, and it happened very quickly, for the same 130 beats, I was going from 10 minutes per kilometer to 8 minutes per kilometer to 440, 430, 420 per kilometer. So essentially, the heart rate and the heart got very efficient at moving over the ground for the same effort level of 130 beats per minute. What we're doing here is building the engine. We're building the heart, lungs, and blood to be as efficient as possible and moving over the ground for the entire duration of the race that we want to run. So if that's a marathon and you're aiming for sub 3 hours, we want to run the marathon as fast as we possibly could at a controllable effort that we can put in and sustain for the entire distance. That's all we're trying to do. And so if you look at that exactly the same as 130 beats, if that's 165 beats that we can maintain for 3 hours, we want to get you at marathon pace for that same 165 beats. And so when it comes to an interval session, like 6 times a kilometer or 4 times 10 minutes within a specific long run, that is also everything to do with effort and nothing to do with pace. Remember, 3 months from now, you want to do something. Run 4:15 per kilometer or 6:52 per mile for the entire duration of a marathon. What's important now is you are not yet there. You are not yet that fit. And so if you try to be that fit and you start to run at that pace, you're going to get into trouble. The goal is to move you from where you're at right now and where you want to be as safely as possible. And the safest way to do that is to run within yourself. I always talk about running within yourself and letting the pace come to you. It's exactly the same for the session. So if that's 6 times a kilometer, we might be looking at what we could do for the marathon. So, okay, I could run the entire marathon at 165 beats. I need to push that forward and get more out of those 165 beats. So the session might be 6 times a kilometer at 165 to 170 beats, but it's in control. And if those paces come out at 4:15, great. If they come out at 4:30, 4:45, 5 minutes for each rep, doesn't matter. What's more important is you're training your heart to be more efficient over the distance of the entire marathon, which includes running faster, running more effort than marathon pace, running slower, and exactly at marathon pace and marathon effort. So in answer to your question, should you slow down or should you persevere and bring that pace to you? You can't do that. You can't bring it. You can't force it. You're going to be too much in the risk zone. You're running to an idea of the pace that you want to run in the future. So it's about letting that pace come to you. Consistency beats perfection, and the goal here is training adaptation. So it's high quality training sessions to effort, and then recovering really well so you can patch a lot of those together over the training schedule. Good luck with your 345 goal. And if you want a couple of recent success stories of people who have also failed forward and done massive things, I'll put them on the screen right now.